Okay, so where were we last time? Let's look at. Yeah, so I think one of the things that's required is to, when we change this quantity, we need to add it to the cart. And we have to make this clickable. Like once we click on this cart, it should basically render a prompt. So why don't we just start with integrating this part? Um, let's go back to our app and let's go to the index.js to see what our initial state is. Here in the initial state, we just have product data. So let's also have a state called cart data. Cart data will again be an array. Yeah. So cart data will be an array. And what we need to do with this is like we need to create an action for this export function set cart data. We pass card data to it. We return. Okay, we have to add it in the action types also. So export constant set cart data. Type the action. Is what going to be card data only. So we created an action. Now we need to implement it in the reducer. So we create a case where action type, if the action type is set card data, then we simply return state and the card, we set the card data for the state to action reload. Right, so now we have integrated with the reducer and no changes are required here. The only changes required was to add this card data, and that's all. Now let's come back to our cards. Now this is our card. Sorry, not this one. This one. Okay, and this is the function that's getting called when we click on increment and decrement. Now, when we are incrementing the quantity, at that point of time, we are setting the state to the new count. Yeah, and at this point of time only, we also need to increase, we also need to kind of we also need to set a data for this. I mean, we also need to set the global state with the cart data. So how do we set the global state? The first thing that we require is the context. So here we are already using the use context, use product state. So uh, okay, I just remember I wanted to clarify to you something. I'll just make a note of it. Um, why didn't I use global state to populate the card, instead used props? So I answered this question after some time. Just made a note of it so that I don't forget. Now I'm already using now, but we need to fire a function. We need to fire an action to set the global state. We will use the use product dispatch. So we can create an uh, a variable which uses the use product dispatch hook. Now all we have to do is just simply dispatch the action. So we import that action, set cart data from context actions, and all we now have to do is set dispatch this set cart data action. And now there's an important thing for us to think about here, which is like what data are we going to pass? Like when we try to set the cart and the data for the cart, what should be the data that we pass? So it depends on what pieces of information do we require. I think the only two things that we require is the is the brand name, the name, the price, and the quantity. Okay, I think these are the four things primarily that's required. So what we are going to do is we says, and we are also getting this using the use product state here. Where is it used? Yeah. So let's drag it to the top. Okay, I think yeah, so we need to dispatch this card data. Now it's going to contain a few things. It's going to like set an object. The object is going to contain the name, the brand name, the price, and the quantity. So the quantity is going to be new count. So quantity is going to be, oops, sorry, new count. And we do the same thing when we decrement. So as you can see, the first thing here is that we are repeating the same set of code into different functions. And when that's the case, it's better to create a new function. So we create constant set global part data. We pass here then count, right? And here we basically drag this out. We set this here. And from here, we just pass the function, which is set global card data. So set global card data, we'll pass to it the new count. That's it. And this is going to be new count, so we should also be and we do the same thing for the other code also. Okay. And that's all. I think our quantity and card data is now integrated. So let's check once if it's working or not. But let's first go to the reducer first. So see, in the reducer, we have defined our card data. If you see the initial state, it's an array. Okay, and in the reducer, we are cloning the state and then simply assigning the action dot payloads to it, which is incorrect, because what it's going to do is that it's going to override the initial type as array into a type of object. So that's not a desired thing. So what we do is we simply state dot uh, sorry. So let's state dot what was it? State dot card data dot um, push action dot payload. Okay, let's see if it works. Yeah, now let's fire something. Okay, and we haven't console log, so we won't be able to understand. Let's console log here to see if our state is getting set. Console log action, sorry, action trigger. And yeah, let's pass action that we do to it. Let's check now. This is pending. Now it's completed. So now let's come back here. Let's file. Oops. Seems like there's some error. Cannot read properties of undefined reading push. Okay, I think in JavaScript, it wasn't push. It was, I think, append. I confused JavaScript with Python. I think in Python it was push, but I think in JavaScript it was append or something. Okay, and let me just Google this. Push an element into array JavaScript. Oh no, it's push only. Okay. Okay, it says cannot read properties of undefined, which essentially means what it means to say is that this card data, sorry, this will be pushed. This card data is coming to be undefined. Okay. Okay. So we can do like this instead of doing this. We can do like this. In the structure state dot card data, and then we add action dot payload. Yeah. Yeah. Now let's check. Let's fire an event. Okay, it becomes one. Now let's say, and now you can see action triggered, which is what we console log here. And we also can see the payload, action payload that is getting sent. The brand name, the name, the price, and the quantity. So if I come here and if I trigger it again, say now the quantity is 2, so it will the action got triggered again, another quantity is 2. So so now that's good, but there's a catch here. I don't know if you guys noticed it. The catch here is that what if I bring down the quantity to 0? Okay, so let's say that sorry, what was yeah, I'm going to the code here. Now if you decrease the quantity, then the action will get re-triggered and the quantity will now become 1. Okay, but but the question is like, what if we make the quantity 0? Okay, then again the action is going to get triggered, but this time the quantity is going to be 0, and it does not make sense, right? That there is some item in the cart where the quantity is 0. So I think if the user has made the quantity to be 0, I think what it means is that he wants to delete that item from the cart. Okay, so we have to write this delete functionality also. So let's come back to a reducer. Let's first create an action type, which is, let it be called export constant delete cart data. Okay, let's come back to actions. Export function delete cart data. Here we don't have to do anything. We simply return the type, which is action types dot delete card data, and return the payload, which is the card data. So in the index, we already have the card data. Now what we have to do is come to the reducer. We have the case action types not delete card data. Okay, so how it's going to delete an item from an existing array? Okay, so there are like multiple ways to do that. One very kind of native way is to essentially kind of loop through the array and create a new array out of it, which is going to exclude that item which is there in the array. But other a better way to do it is to use the splice function, okay, to delete an element from the array. So how this splice function is going to work is hold on. Um, yeah, I think if you use the splice function, then basically it will shift the things to the other side. Uh, so I think one thing you can do is you can use the shift method. Yeah, if you use the shift method, then it would be better instead of splicing, because what splicing does is like it adds an element to the array. If you want to delete an element from the array, then you have to either you can slice it, okay, but slicing it would simply like create pieces of the array. A better way to do it would be to simply shift the elements of the array. Or there is like another way to do it, which is called delete. You can actually directly call the delete method, and using the delete method, um, you will be able to delete. But delete is kind of deprecated, and you should not be using the delete. So yeah. So I think A better way to do it is to simply loop through the elements and then find out which one is the one you want to delete and then simply delete it. Okay. So we are going to write that logic only here. Uh, so constant, actually that logic should not go here. It should come to the payloads only. So I'll simply like return the state and the card data, which is going to be um, the action.payload, right? So now we have the functionality created. Now we all have to do is like, and this is going to happen only in the decrement quantity stage. So if the decrement quantity, like if the new count is 0, so if new count equals to 0, we have to first import the action, delete card data, delete card data, and we pass. So what are we going to pass here is we are going to pass the, okay, let's not do it like this. Let's create an if condition, new count was 0. Then for each like so we are going to filter the array. So we will take the state like constant new card data equals to um, new card data equals to state dot card data. Okay, I think what's the variable name for the global state here? It's state only. Okay. State dot card data. Card data, card data. Okay. Now what we are going to do is we are going to filter. Now filter the uh, products. Product. Now what's the criteria to filter? Product dot. So how are we going to identify that this is the product? Okay. So let's, for simplicity, I mean, every product will have some ID. Since we have not taken that ID, for simplicity, let's say that we are going to do it using the description, I mean the name. So we here if product return product dot name should not be equal to name, which is the one defined in the array. Okay, so this should be, yeah. And we are going to pass this action. We are going to dispatch this action, delete card data, and set it pass the new card data. So a small if condition, like if it's 0 or if it's less than 0, right? So this should be, no, shouldn't be equals to 0, should be less than equals to 0. And then in that case, we need to set the card data in a way that it's kind of not taking into account that particular product, or in other words, if the user brings down the quantity of a product to 0, then what it essentially means is that the user is trying to get rid of the product. So we simply delete the product from our cart. Okay, so let's see if that works now. Okay, let's save this and let's come back here. Let's refresh this. Yeah, the data has arrived. Now let's come back to our reducer and let's print this console log action triggered, and we also see action dot payload just to check if the things are working for us. Okay, I think data is here. Yeah. Now let's increment this to 2. So, and then we'd increment it to 0. Let's see what happened. So it says action triggered, and it says the quantity. This is reducer.js 11. Okay, I think we have not removed it. So first we have to remove it. Now try to trigger this. And now you have only one action triggered, and inside this you have the okay, 12100 121. Okay, so yeah, I think we have done some mistake in our coding. So what's happening is like the same thing is added, and I can understand why. Because in the set card data, we have just destructured the current card data and appended the value to it. Actually, this shouldn't be like this. So we removed it from here. We simply write action.payload. We pass the correct payload from the card component. So when we go here, what was the action? Set card data. Set global. Yeah. So in here, so before passing new count, I think what we need to do here is like we need to check if the product is already available or present within the cart. If it's available, then we simply increment the quantity for that product. And if it's not available, then in that case, we need to append it or push the product. So let's take let cart data equals to state dot cart data. And then let's simply map this. So cart data dot map for each product. For each product, what we do is if product dot name is equals to name, then in that case we need to update the quantity. So product dot return product dot quantity and set it to new count. And if that's not the case, because you have to return something from the card data every time you map the elements. So if that's not the case, then we simply return the product. And then we pass this. This should be taken up in a like new card data equal to this. Simply use this variable here. We set it the count like this. So now let's see things work. Let's add one quantity to it. Okay, we have in console logged. So in the reducer, we set card data, we console log, console log action triggered. uh, card data dot map is not a function. Okay, so card data dot map is not a function, is coming from cards. So what it's saying is this card data is not function. So let's console log to see what's coming in card data. That it's giving that error. Figure it. Now it says, yeah, now it's 0. Then it says action triggered set card data and we added that product. But if you see the quantity, it's an array, which it shouldn't be. So let's come back here and we are setting this product dot quantity to new count. So I think it's an append. Yeah, I think that's okay. So why does the quantity have to be an array? Shouldn't be an array. Let's debug a little further to check what's wrong with the code. Okay. Product.name is name, then product.quantity will be new count. Otherwise, we simply return the product. We don't need this error statement as such. We say return product. Okay. And then array. Is quantity coming to be array? Will we set it to? Okay, no, not from here. Okay, it might be because of this. Mm, okay, got it. So what's happening is like we are setting this new card data, which is an array. And earlier we were expecting this to be a number and we were setting the global state here. So that's the reason why this is happening. So I think what we need to do here is we need to delete this entire, not this entire thing. I mean, we can simply change it to new card data and we dispatch this set card data uh, with the new card data, which is assigned to card data. Let's come back here. Yeah, now the card data is 0, but at least it's an array. We'll make it 2. Now it says card data, but now because the card data is now become an object. So still there's some error in the code in the way it's handling this reducer part. Let's debug further. It's card data.js 21. Okay, in here. The console log here to see what's coming. Yeah, I mean, reducer.js 11. Okay, so action.payload, this thing is getting passed. Yeah, but we didn't get this console log at line 28. Yeah, we did. It was an empty array. Okay, got it. So that's happening because of this set card data, and we don't need this object notation here. So we also don't need this. Action.payload.card data. So we just need to pass this new card data. That's all. Okay, now we triggered twice. At least the array is coming now, but the data is empty. So let's come back here. Check why it's empty. So yeah, that's because the card data it's checking is mapping the products, and if the product, so this is basically based on the assumption that a product is found within the array. Okay, and if new card data is if the product is not found, then the new card data is going to be empty. Okay, otherwise return the product. Yeah, so if the card data is like, so yeah, so what we have to do simply here is like we have to check if the card data is an empty array. Okay. If card data dot length equals to 0, then we simply push this thing. So let's new card data. Okay. Yeah. So what if the card data dot length is empty, then a new card data, sorry, new card data is simply going to be an array which will contain the new product. Or we can simply just just place this array here, which is going to be the name, the brand name, price, and the quantity, which is going to be the new card. So this is only if the card data dot length is 0. If it's not 0, then we map each element of the card data and update the quantity for matching elements. Otherwise, we simply return that product, and that should be all. Let's refresh this to see if it works. Click on one. Okay, so okay, no data comes. We click on two. Yeah, that action got triggered, but the array is still empty. Okay, so it seems like in the action.payload. Okay, with the yeah, card data, we're just catching the action set card data and we're passing the new card data here. So I think the new card data here is probably coming to be null or like an empty array. Okay, yeah, that's because let's just console log new card data to see what's getting entered. Okay. So as you can see, okay, card chase 99. This was at 35. So this is the one. Yeah, so at 35, what's happening is like we are getting this empty array. And that's the reason why it's happening. What was it? Card number 1935, 1935. 19. We have this call card data. Okay. So it seems like this new card data is getting passed as empty array. And that's the reason why it's happening. Let's see. That's data. Okay. Yeah. Because this is an if statement, we have to trace it in the else statement. Otherwise, it's always going to override our new card data. Let's see now. Increases to 1, increases to 2. Now, yeah. Now you can see it's okay. So at least the first one got triggered properly. Yeah. So this was a console log at the card.js19, which is this one. This 19. This one. Okay, this is not that much important, so we remove this. So at 0th element, only 2 was placed. Okay. It might have to do with how we are setting up the reducers. I think we go to the reducer, it says card data or action.payload. I think the reducer is properly set. Trigger check card data. And getting passed with an array. and the zeroth index of the array is just 2. So I think it has to do with the here probably. Okay, I think the first time, yeah, the first time it gets inserted properly. Now let's try one more time. And now you can see that simply 2 is getting passed, and I think it's happening in card.js36. So let's come to card.js line number 36. So this new card data, this is getting an array in which the zeroth element is 2. And that might be happening because because of this here. So we don't return it from here. We simply return the product from here. Now let's check again. Yeah, one. So now an action got triggered and data was properly set. Now let's come back here and let's click on 2. Yeah. Yeah, the quantity was properly set now. Let's click on one more time. It is 3. Action again got triggered. And now the quantity was updated to 3. Now it's working as we expected. Now let's see if the delete functionality works. 2, 1, 0. Okay. So we'll come here now to decrement quantity. Before we start filtering, we need to understand what does card data contains. So let's console right here. Card data. It's 46.1. It seems like the new card data, state.card data is getting updated with just 1 at the end. So which is not desirable. I think there's some issue with this increment when we are coming back to 1, or maybe the decrement itself. Yeah, I think the same issue is happening here also. Just need to remove this and return the product. So 1, press 2, then let's press 1, let's press okay. Again, we got 1. 46 is getting the new card data is 1. Okay, that's because on decrement we are setting but we are not expecting this new count now. Yeah, so when we are setting the global card data, we need to set it in the way we were setting it there. So there should be this if else statement here. Check now. Okay, this is going to if it works. Okay, it comes back to 0. I think this is the old figure from here. So yeah, on decrement quantity, the price is not getting incremented. And I think the reason for that is simply this. Uh, yeah. Mm, no, I think in here this is fine, which means that you can return from here. This is filter function. So that's okay. Um, yeah, let's no, we need to set the global card data. When we are setting the global card data, we have to we have to like add this new card data to it. So yeah, let's do that only. Um, let's take this entire thing. Let's do one thing. Let's write it afresh so we can get our logic clarified. So we have this new count here, and once we click on decrement quantity, it's going to set this quantity to the new quantity. So for that, we take the state, which is that state is equal to, sorry, which let cart data is equal to state dot cart data. Now, if the now let's map this cart data for each product and check if product dot name equals to name, then that's what we are talking about. In that case, product dot quantity is going to be new count, and we return that product. Otherwise, we simply return that product. Okay. So that's all for card data. Now let's like name it as new card data. Let new card data equals to this. And now all we have to do is set the global card data with the new card data. Okay. Let's refresh this. One, click on 0. Oh, both of them the quantity was 1 only. And that's because it's not going to 0. And that's because we are not setting the state. Okay. Okay, it's not product context. Product only. Yeah. Okay, now the quantity got updated to 0. Okay, but as we have already discussed, so this is all working fine. But as we already discussed that if the quantity is 0, then I don't want to like I don't want to um, you know what I don't want to like replace the like change the quantity of the item in the cart. I simply want to delete the item from the cart. So let's first check what we have written for the action type for delete card is just the card data, and in the reducer we are simply setting to the card data. So we need to pass the entire card data here without that particular element that we're trying to remove. So if so what we have to do is like if new count is 0, sorry, not 0, less than equals to 0, then the new card data dot map for each product or maybe simply new card data dot filter product for each product dot name. It shouldn't be equal to the name of the current product. Otherwise, we go with this approach. So I remove this else here, like from here, from here, right. Yeah, yeah. We add the else here. Let's check now. Yeah, but the filter is not a function, so that's because it might be that the new card data is like yeah, it's the new card data might be is basically an empty, it's an object, so we move it to this filter. So it's not based on new card filter actually, so it should be based on the card data. So we write new card filter. New card data should be equal to card data dot this. Let's refresh this. Another quantity is 1. We'll decrease this, not getting decreased. What it essentially means is that my saved state is not getting set. So that's because we have simply used the new card data and we have not called the delete functionality over it. That's why. So we'll simply delete card data and pass the new card data to it. Let's see now. We'll click on the plus and we'll click on the minus. Okay. That's 1. I think the other event did not get triggered. Let's check why. So it seems like the new count is not getting less than equals to 0. That's probably the reason. Yeah, I think let's check on the log count. It says 0. Yeah, the count is 0. So so it should enter this condition. And new card data is going to be card data filter. So the card data is going to be new card data. Just console log there. New card data just to check what's going on. Yeah, it's an empty array. And I think we are back to square one where we did not handle the event of an empty array. So basically what happens if the new card data is empty? Yeah, because yeah, so I think so what I think we can do is like new card data, not like this, just one more relation. New card data dot length is 0, then is not equals to 0. then rename the current data. Save. Control only count is 0. 49 and the 49 the area was empty. So card dot length is not zero. Yeah, so nothing got triggered, that's why. Okay. Let's do one thing. So here we are getting two conditions, like if the card data is empty and if the card data is not empty. So maybe instead of filter, what we can do is run map for each product. Each product. What name is then yeah. So we won't return anything in that case. Okay. Um, okay. The product of name is going to be name. Okay, so let's we're going to delete the card data. Um, Nine 46, 49. Watching now count. Where 49? Oh, okay. I haven't saved it. Undefined gender entry. Hmm. That happened when you're trying to go beneath one, which is like, then it's console of 53. Yeah. So this one got undefined. That's probably because, yeah. So if the product dot name is name, then we should not, yeah. So the map function is not the correct thing to use here, because for map it is going to transform each and every element of the array, but we're not going to take certain elements in the array, and therefore instead of using map, I think we can use the filter. And if the product name dot is not equals to name, then we return the product. Okay, let's see now. One. Okay. Okay, with the filter, it's coming as MD array. Okay, let's check one thing more thing. Let's make it 2 and 3. So yeah. So update is happening properly, at least the increment part. So if I decrease this to, okay, decrease is not working for anything. Okay, let's call decrease to 2. This was card.js 46, which basically console logs the new count. So let's come back here. Yeah, so this stays at 3, and that's probably because we are not updating the state from here. This is say set quantity as new count. So we also need to do this thing here. New count and set quantity as new count. Now it works properly. So 2 plus 1 plus 2, and then we'll come to 0. Then in the cart, we don't have any element. Yeah. Similarly for this, okay, so there's one element of this quantity. If we increase it to 2, then the array still contains one element only, and the quantity will change to okay, it says the quantity is changed to 1. So okay. The update is still happening to be 1 only. To check that, we remove this thing to 0. Then I think that the last element should be still there. But the quantity is still 1. Okay. Okay, I'll just check this thing out. This point of time, not able to make out what's wrong here. Think there might be something, it has got something to do with the map and filter, because map transforms every element in the array or object into something else. But since we are trying to delete something from an array, I think the map is not a very suitable data structure thing to use. So instead of that, we can use filter, but a filter is returning an empty array in that case. So we have to do a little bit of debugging to see what variables they are getting and what's happening. But I think you get the gist of how we integrate it and how we write the logic. One thing that I want you to know is that the way I'm writing this logic here within the component is not something that you should be doing. We will refactor this code later on when we'll add kind of a directory called util, and inside that directory we'll use the state and then transform the data. Okay. And from my previous section, yeah, why didn't I use the global state to populate? Instead I used the props. So this is a question that I thought that it might come to your mind later on, so I thought that maybe I can clarify it today. the question is very simple. If you go to the home page, um, yeah. So if you go to the home page, you'll see that in the product, in the card, for each card, I have mapped the products and passed the data for the card as props. Now you might think that this products array is available in the global state only. So why can't we just inside this cards I can use this state and goes to use global state. I can simply do state dot products and I'll get all the data that the card needs to make, right? Which we are getting from the home section. We're doing the same thing like products that map and simply passing the props. So why can't we use the global state and access the data from the global component, which is card, and why we are doing it as props from a lower component? So the reason for that is like we want our card element to be generic, because imagine like if the component is being used somewhere else in the application, then in that case if it uses the data from the global state, then it's not very useful because it will then be constricted to only one kind of application. So it's better to pass props to the card instead of using the global state and getting the data, although both the positions, both the places know the data, right? So for example, if today you're going to like put the products card, now what if you also want to put the item in the items card or the wish list card? Okay, there's and then if you use the global state, you have to make necessary changes here, maybe probably passing a prop which is going to tell you what kind of data you want to render. So instead of getting into all those messy stuff, I think the best way is to basically pass the props to the component and let the component take care of the render. Okay, so that's the reason why we have used the props, and it's a very good example to distinguish between a global state and a local state, and how what is the characteristics of props and why we take it. Because as I have already said, passing data from one component to another, there are like several different ways to do that, and you don't have to be restricted to one of them. All right, so yeah, but there are like in those several different ways, I think there are some ways which are simply not acceptable, and this is like one of them, in which you basically use the global state inside the card component and try to populate the data, because that won't make your card component a generic one. Then it will be something that is particularly used for a certain thing, so you may have to refactor the code for that accordingly. But I think that's not what's required. Yeah, and that's the reason why I used prop in this particular example. Okay, I think that's all for today. Sadika or Swapna, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, Swatandra.
Okay. Sadika, do you have any?
No, no, Samna.
Okay, I didn't go too deep today, I think, because the numbers are not there. But once the numbers comes in, then I'll start with the model components and how to basically put the data in the model components for us to view. So before that, let's get our reducers and the data part ready. Like we integrate all the events that are going to happen, and then we will simply use the model to show the data in a very formatted fashion. Okay, for that we will require something called React model, which is like a package. Although you can also create your own model, but we will probably use React model because it just gives you all the built-in functionalities that are required to build the model part. So yeah, we'll be using that instead of doing something else like creating a model out of it and then wasting our time, because that's not the intended purpose of this courses. Okay, guys, then see you tomorrow. Have a good day. Cheers. Bye.